Okay, so last episode I kicked off Mike Giardi because he started to ramble about college players that nobody cared about. And then days later, I invite one guest who is a lock to get me to do that exact thing. Not even college football, but college basketball. UConn fan of the best team in the country, Mike Mutnansky, world famous Mutstack and formerly WEEI. How are you, pal?
I'm good, buddy. And I'm good because UConn is good this year. They won a championship a year ago, and you and I were talking before we came on here. They look really as good as last year. And I watched Purdue on Sunday, and Purdue does not scare me outside of their 9-foot-tall center. So things are good if you're a UConn grad here in early February.
I'm not even going to knock on wood. I'm just going to book my tickets to the
good.
Final Four, the final and the regional in Brooklyn. We're going to go down. We're going to have some beers, and we're going to stop talking UConn right now because we're going to lose some folks. What we are going to talk about as we record midday Tuesday, Super Bowl week, exciting times. Obviously, neither of us are in Las Vegas. If I was, this would be the saddest backdrop you could have in the Sin City. Yours not bad because, of course, the UConn flag. There I go, breaking my own promise in 30 seconds. Yeah. Is to talk Patriots and prop bets for the Super Bowl. You came on last year. I don't know how we did. If anyone wants to score keep, that's fine. But I'm just going to tell you.
Stop. I will say how I did. I came on here and said Mahomes at plus 125 for MVP, and Mahomes won the MVP. I do not feel as confident this year. Fair warning. I do not feel as confident, but I did go back and check. That was my big bet last year. Mahomes MVP. It worked out pretty well. We'll see if we can find something. It looks like a great game on Sunday.
Well, all right. See, this is why he's on. He's a pro. He's keeping his own score. Right. He's jumping in to interrupt me when appropriate right away, and he's making you money. So that's the goal here today, is have a little fun. Obviously, the podcast sponsored by Fanduel. All the odds for me will be on there. But enjoy the Super Bowl, bet responsibly. And first, let's get to the Patriots, because there have been drips and drabs, as there usually is in Super Bowl week. People, going on radio shows or TV shows, shilling for certain brands or whatever they've endorsed lately. The Patriots, meanwhile, are dealing with some of that, like Jakobi Meyers, and they're also reshuffling their coaching staff. Ben McAdoo in as of this morning. Steve Belichick, Vinny Cincinnati out, a couple of moving pieces. But you and I have not really talked at all, including just text. So as far as the Jerod Mayo era goes, let's start here. We're coming up on the 1-month anniversary. And I am marking time like I'm a high school girl.
What are we doing? A 1-month anniversary? Jeez.
Whatever the 1-month poll, put in horse betting terms for me.
The first furlong. Let's say that. First furlong of Jerod Mayo's coaching career. Sure.
The first furlong. We've made it. You're looking back. What has been a good surprise to you? What has been a bad surprise?
I don't know if there's been a good surprise, man. I don't know. And again, I went into this thinking that Jerod Mayo was the hand-picked guy. I think there was some very good reporting on this throughout the course of the season from yourself and Tommy Curran in particular. It just felt like they had earmarked this probably a year earlier, 2 years earlier than they had planned it, but Mayo was going to be their guy. As far as good surprises, I don't know. Do you have one in mind? Like, I think to me, the word I kept coming back to when you asked about this and friends have texted about this, sort of underwhelming, has been the post-Belichick coaching maneuvers from the coach or the coordinators who we'll get to. And I had given Bill a lot of crap because I think Bill, or I thought Bill, Andrew, had botched post-Brady, post-Gronk in particular. Like you had these two, your buddy Mike Giardi calls them planet players. These planet players leave, and there was nothing to do. It was Cam Newton, and it was – I don't even know who the answer was at tight end. And now I kind of get that feeling post-Belichick. Like, were they fully committed to getting rid of him? And if they were, was the process really going to be elevate the defensive coordinator, interview 12, according to your reporting, 12 offensive coordinators, and then the guy they hire is the last guy they saw? He interviews on Wednesday – on Zoom, comes in Thursday, and he's the guy they hire, and he's somebody who has not had really a lot of experience calling offensive plays. So I think Jerod Mayo he comes with a lot of positive qualities, specifically the ability to speak to the current player in the NFL. I think Bill Belichick, his relationship, as the Mac Jones reporting last week shows, he lost that touch with players of a certain age. Mayo's going to have that, but as far as the process has gone, color me underwhelmed with the way it is broken down since the Mayo press conference there in Foxborough a couple weeks ago.
Okay, here's hoping for a better second furlong or second month anniversary coming up for the Jerod Mayo era. And look, a couple things on this. A lot of the reporting around the offensive coordinator search is owed to Albert Breer, Sports Illustrated, who's been on a lot of the candidates, if not most or all of them. I can tell you it was actually a dinner Wednesday night with Alex Van Pelt, goes in Thursday, continues. And he had flown around to Tampa in Las Vegas to interview for their offensive coordinator job. So just minor details, but you want to report, you want to be accurate. That's what happened. What surprised me is how involved Elliot Wolf has been. And I don't want to get ahead here because we are going to talk about his influence, where his standing might be in the front office, a grab bag, and then get to some media stuff before we do the prop bets. But when Jerod said that Elliot and Matt Groh hadn't been involved in the coaching search and been a big help, my thought was just, okay, they're sitting in the room. They're asking questions from a personnel perspective. It's not necessarily they're helping him make the list. And if his thing is collaboration, which is Mike Giardi also unofficially labeled it the C word going around the NFL, at least he's living up to that. And I expected Jerod too, but when you look at these candidate lists, whether it's the offensive coordinator or all these different names, Elliot Wolf has a clear and obvious influence. Whether or not that's a good thing in the long term, I don't know. But in the short term, when you're going, okay, Jerod Mayo, who's been a coach all of 5 years, any level, 5 years, that's it, is opening up searches for 3 coordinators and basically the whole staff. Who the hell is he going to call? Okay, he should go back through the Patriots media guides and just look through the names because that's his network. But he's not done that, and so that's been a pleasant surprise for me. As far as I've done a lot on Van Pelt, him aside, what else do you just make of the process here before we move on to Elliot Wolf?
Well, collaboration. Like it's just so different than the approach they have taken with Bill, and I feel like some of the spin from Camp Kraft has basically been all the bad things that happened were on Bill's watch. And I think this goes back to Thursday Night Football when the Patriots played on Thursday night, and Al Michaels had what sounded to me like this pre-prepared, obviously, but prepared speech about Bill Belichick's impact on the organization. He reminded everybody that he never had full control until they won the 3 Super Bowls. And then since then, it has all been about Bill. And that has been basically parroted in different ways, shapes, and forms since then. And so to your point about the way they've gone through, the coaching search as an organization, like they've completely pushed they pushed away from Bill. They're not bringing back Bill retreads, people in the Bill camp. Theirs is a new look, so potentially that's a positive. But as a whole, are the successful organizations, and I don't know this, are the successful organizations ones that collaborate on everything? Or is there somebody that is making that call? And if Elliot Wolf's making that call, is he the guy that should be prepared to make that call? So you're right. It's interesting in watching it, the collaboration happen. But they do feel like as an organization, they've really, really tried to distance themselves from Bill Belichick almost immediately post-Bill with the coaches, the front office, the way they've done it with that C-word collaboration.
So a couple things on this. One, it's hard to know unless we're in the room, right? Who's making the call? How much collaboration is there? Secondly, it's not lost in me that certain videos or trailers for upcoming podcasts, whatever the Patriots are doing, which is this full-on nostalgia trip on Twitter. Granted, that's what you should be doing given the current state of the franchise and the recent history, which includes the greatest run in NFL history. But Belichick not being included in like a 90-second clip of Super Bowl 38, come on. Will be better than this.
And people if you have not seen it, there's a 2003, like a 20-year anniversary, whatever it is, of what happened in 2003. There's a video clip out there, and literally in this almost 2-minute clip, there's not a picture of Bill Belichick. You have to physically go out of your way, Callahan, to not include Bill Belichick there. And so I include that in my disappointment here because it got personal. I don't know how personal it got. I think if you read the Wickersham piece, like clearly there was some back and forth, it sounds like, between Jonathan Kraft and Bill Belichick and who was doing what. But they've let it carry over in the aftermath of this. And that video is a big part about it. I wrote about that at mutstack.com, and I forgot about it till you brought it up. But if people have not seen it, you can find it on the Patriots website. Like you're obviously trying to ignore Bill Belichick and trying to send a message that, and maybe the case was this, they asked Bill to be part of it. He said no. And that was their way of sort of pushing back, saying, hey, Bill, you don't want to sit down for this, be a part of it. Screw you, you're not in here. But that just either take the high road or don't. This middle ground of like, well, we say we're taking the high road, but Bill's not there. Just, I don't know, it doesn't do it for me. And I think that the Bill move they had to make, I wrote about it for months. We talked about it. They made the right move. But boy, it got petty. And the NBA is petty wars, but now it's the Crafts and Belichick.
A happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch or the lazy boy and grabbing your favorite football snacks and placing some super bets. The Super Bowl, 49ers Chiefs. Look, we all saw it 4 years ago. It is very different this time around. I think there is value to be found, whether you like prop bets or the money line or the spread. So go to FanDuel, where you have so many ways to end the season with a W, even if the Patriots didn't, or maybe 2 or 3, depending on how many bets you want to place. And not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. Don't forget the national anthem. And new customers, if you have not joined FanDuel yet, if you join today, you will get $200, 200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So join FanDuel and visit FanDuel at FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Since we brought it up a couple times, Mutstack, now almost 3,000 subscribers. This is your Friday newsletter. People should subscribe and look for it. If you're looking for a combination of football, betting, Boston sports media, other Boston sports, there's no better combination that can reach your inbox than Must Letter.
Thanks,
On
man.
the part about pettiness, I will say this. There's this Apple TV documentary coming up. It's The Dynasty. It's based on that Jeff Benedict book, which was just kind of a craft PR.
No, hold on. No, it was written by the Crafts. Jeff Benedict did not write that book. That was a craft
propaganda
PR.
effort as I was going on.
I stepped on your joke. Damn it.
You will, and look, this isn't to say it's a bad documentary. There's not a lot of information there, incredible insights and plays. I'm not downplaying that. I'm going to watch this. I enjoyed all that the first time around as a kid growing up in New England. Don't let that be lost on you. What I will say is this is like a lot of sports documentaries now, documentaries in quotes, where they're only made when access is granted and influence is returned. So the Crafts say, yeah, you can have whatever you want, but I'm going to have final say over this documentary, which is not how any kind of journalism is done, podcast writing or video, but that's how business is being done now.
Are you in it? Are you interviewed for it?
No, but the reason I bring this up is because you will see extensively folks like Robert Kraft and Tom Brady and old coaches. And my understanding is for this documentary, while those folks gave hours upon hours upon hours, Bill was a small percentage of the time that other folks gave. And again, just
let me ask you, Andrew, is that his choice or their choice? What's that?
His choice. Now, he understands who unofficially authored the book. The Dynasty is based in that book, yada, yada. But I just to back up the reporting from ESPN, stuff you're hinting at, it's very real. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, let's move on after I get this off my chest, because something you mentioned, Kraft's been post-Belichick, and the Crafts very much care about their perception. I think this has gone a little bit too far as me and my colleagues go, and I only say this and take this personally because I've had a few people on Twitter, a lovely place for self-esteem and truth, as all of us know, who have said, oh, did the Crafts tell you to say that? And I want to say, as I will say now, you know how many times I've spoken to Robert or Jonathan in person in my entire life? Zero. There is nothing that they would do for me or have done for me that would affect my coverage in any kind of way. If I think a move is good, I will tell you I think it's good for reasons X, Y, and Z. But it's not because they're doing me any extra kind of favors, all right? And it's very clear, some folks in the media, same as it was with Bill, when there's no criticism of Bill and there's a lot of news about Bill coming out, that there's probably a relationship there. And that's a lot of media. I'm not saying I'm by any means perfect, but this idea that all of us are suddenly at the trough of the Crafts who are filling it in from the other side and we just eat this stuff up as if it's in our best interest. It's not happening. It's especially not here. And people who I push back on Twitter have gone like, oh, I didn't mean you. Well, just stop. Stop quoting me then.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But of course they meant you. But they mean the media in general. There is this, it's a weird spot for Patriot fans right now because I'm sure if you go back and talk to Cowboys fans after their amazing run in the 90s, similar spot. Your team's not as relevant. They're not the most important thing. You're not playing every primetime game. You're Sunday at 1 o'clock, which for a lot of us, we like those Sunday at 1 o'clock games, so that's a good thing. But you're not at that power seat anymore. And then the Crafts are probably struggling with that as well. And so is the fan base. Like a lot of fans, the identity has been caught up in the success of this team. and it's going to be a while before they're back at that pedestal. And you're probably there's reality. You're never, as a fan, going to experience what you just had for almost 20 years. I don't think the entire run was this magical run, but the totality of it, you'll never see it again. It was a shooting star, a comet, whatever. Like, just enjoy it and don't try to. It's not going to be replicated. So be ready for some down years. Hopefully you find a quarterback here at some point. But I just assume like everyone has their sources, whether it's Kraft sources, whether it's Belichick sources, coaching sources, playing sources. Like if you're getting reports, if you're giving reports and doing the job that you do, you talk to insiders sometimes. So fans can't be – they're upset about it because it makes their team look bad. If Andrew Callahan's reporting stuff from the Krafts that makes the team look good and they feel good about it, then fans don't care about it. But their team is down right now. They're mad at their team.
That's it. I don't want to spend any more time on my podcast about me because
Look
we're here for Patriots.
Finger wagging at social media today. Patriot fans, get away from Cal.
just take a breath. This is a downtime. Super Bowl coming up, but before that, you mentioned drafting a quarterback. Down years are coming. They're going to need to rebuild. I said weeks ago on this podcast on TV, wrote about it. Keep an eye on Elliot Wolf when it comes to the Patriots' next GM. And I put quotes here because the Patriots are not officially going to name a GM, is my understanding, VP of player personnel, director of player personnel, whatever it might be. I think it will be him. And so far, through this coaching search, when he's not only just staying in New England as opposed to going to the Senior Bowl with Matt Groh and Pat Stewart and Cameron Williams, but he's in this coaching search that now features 3 of 4 assistants who have been hired on the outside, who overlap with him in Green Bay. Clearly, this is a guy who's going to have a lot of say in the front office. So I would start here. People want to split from Bill. You call from Bill to be gone. Is Elliot Wolf, who just completed his 3rd season in New England or is about to, enough of a split to say the Patriots aren't just running it back without Bill, that he'll take this in a new direction given most of his career, it's about 20 years of experience, came outside of Foxborough?
I would say on its face, yes, because he doesn't come from that Bill tree necessarily. But there are still unanswered questions that I have about Elliot Wolf. So his departure from Cleveland, if you go back and look at the reports, like a lot of it was that they were very analytically focused and he wasn't. So we just got done reading, thanks to Andrew Callahan and others, like some pretty interesting stuff about the Patriots wanting no part of analytics. So at least initially a couple of years ago when he left Cleveland, I think in 2020, part of that was he wasn't driven the way that front office was in Cleveland on analytics. So that worries me a little bit. The second part of this, and you can help me with the timeline. So he took over as the scouting director officially in 2022, early in that year. A couple months later, they had a draft. They took a guard in round 1 after trading backwards. They took Tyquan Thornton over George Pickens and Trey McBride, who were taking 2 of the next 5 picks. 2 really good offensive players. McBride especially, so it looks like a generational tight end in Arizona potentially. They pass on those 2 and take a guy that nobody was talking about at that point in Tyquan Thornton. How much impact do you think Elliot Wolf had on those selections in his first quote-unquote draft with the team versus that was still a time where Bill was telling scouts, Elliot Wolf, Matt Groh, hey guys, forget it, I got this pick?
So I wouldn't put a ton into the title because when he came aboard, I don't know if there was a set timeline of, hey, come work, be a consultant, learn here, we'll take all your experience, because it was 14 years in Green Bay. He interviewed for the GM job with the Packers, didn't get it, goes to Cleveland, assistant GM. Like, these are all very good, positive things coming to New England with a different perspective.
Yeah.
Matt Groh, that was his first draft as director of player personnel. Matt Groh came up on the college side. When push came to shove, obviously Bill has final say, but Bill listened to Matt more than anybody else. And Bill said he's as good as anyone we've had in that role. He said that in the first few months of Matt Groh getting that job. That's Scott Pioli. That's Nick Caserio. That's Dave Ziegler. Okay, and now Matt Groh's right there. My understanding is, and this is, again, how do I say this? Tyquan Thornton had a big supporter in Matt Groh. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
So I wouldn't worry so much about Elliot. And since then, when Elliot's risen up, gotten the title, director of scouting, just generic whatever, you're here long-term, we'll give you an official job, is he handled a lot more negotiations on the pro side, free agency, internal extensions, money than Groh did because he has a much bigger network, not only just working in Cleveland and Green Bay, but dealing with agents and former players and guys who might come in. As we saw, Terrence Mitchell, for example, ex-Browns cornerback, comes in a couple of years ago, doesn't make the team, but like even scrap heap signings had kind of Elliot's touch on that. So he was much more on the pro side than the college side.
So I'll put that to the side then and say remains to be seen. On its face, it is a big enough step away. He spent enough time in two other organizations that doesn't quite directly link himself to Bill. But I think now what we're going to see now, right? So his impact immediately is on the coordinators who had a major overlap, as you point out, with his tenure elsewhere. So let's see how those guys pan out. You've written a lot and talked a lot about Alex Van Pelt. I had the same questions a lot of fans do with the fact that 12th guy. We'll see how it plays out. Now the next step is they have a lot of money to spend. We were pitched as a fan base, whatever, observers of the team. Hey, next year, high draft pick, a lot of money. Do they spend that money? How do they spend that money? Are we talking about big misses in free agency or are we talking about big hits? That, to me, is the next step of sort of grading him out. But on its face, yes, he's enough of a departure from Bill Belichick that I say, okay, willing to see what this guy has to offer in that role as quote-unquote de facto GM without the title.
Okay, good, because I would agree. And the bottom line in Elliot Wolf or whomever it might be, and maybe it stays with Matt Groh. Until further notice, Matt Groh is the director of player personnel. That's the highest role in the front office. He's the one, especially when it comes to the draft, more likely than not, calling the shots. But again, there's a reason I keep bringing up Elliot, and it's not because of speculation or because of any particular relationship with him. It's just to say things that I've heard. He's risen up the ranks, as we just detailed, in a way that's quick. And when you look at his resume and skill set, would fit what the Patriots need, going in a new direction, having a network, being able to handle a whole front office. That said, the money thing, and Wolf too, all remains to be seen. Like that's the bottom line here. I do think it's enough of a pivot. The bigger question is not yes or no, is this big enough of a move? It's, is he the right man for the job? And again, as someone who's interviewed for at least one GM job before, 20 years in the league, on paper, kind of like Alex Van Pelt, checks a lot of boxes. But what are you going to do in that role? We don't know. Remains to be seen. It's kind of a lame answer. Like, that's the world we live in now, post-Belichick. There's a lot more uncertainty about these new characters that are stepping in. And that I think you just kind of have to deal with it for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think as a fan base, what you've gone through now, I think you're accepting of the position you're in, and it's not been a sexy offseason. Like Elliot Wolf's not a sexy name. Alex Van Pelt is not a sexy name.
Give me a sexy name, Mutt.
Cliff Kingsbury would have been a sexy name.
That's a sexy man.
Right. He's also he's a sexy man. I'm okay saying that. He's also a big name. I'm forgetting his name. But when you hire a special teams coordinator who's coming off one of the four special team seasons of the year, and with the Rams last year, yes, in the McVay tree, results were not very good. Not a very sexy name. So the Crafts are putting a lot of faith in guys who, at least locally, don't have a lot of like major name recognition that fans are going to say, okay, that guy's here, we're all set. It's a huge prove me situation for all these guys here. Maybe outside of Jerod Mayo. Fans like Jerod Mayo. They're accepting of Mayo. Everybody else, it sort of feels like I need to see that the team's going in the right direction with these hires they've had and what they do. Free agency, draft, offseason, year one Mayo next fall.
And so the funny thing is, to me, we're getting, again, drips and drabs of this new coaching staff as it's being put together, and I want to spend a minute on Ben McAdoo. But we won't know how good this coaching staff is or what the sum of its parts look like until 12 months from now, like the end of their first season. The thing we don't know now is, of course, the GM conversation we just had. But depending on who's calling the shots, if and when that's announced, for the draft, after the draft, I don't know. We'll learn about them a lot sooner. What do you prioritize? What are you looking for? What are the prototypes of different positions? Is it still going by the old Patriots playbook and what Belichick wanted, or is it something totally different? Because you're right, Elliot Wolf is someone who doesn't abhor analytics, but whatever a step below abhorring something is, like really just doesn't want to see it. We'll go in a different aisle down the store when it's coming down this way, and you see it from a distance, and you're like, I'll just go around. That's him, and I've heard that from other folks. It doesn't mean he's bad at his job. If the Kansas City Chiefs are in the Super Bowl year after year after year, that's another old school front office. It doesn't deal with a lot of analytics. Granted, they have the best player in the world, and that matters a lot. but they've gotten by with that approach. I would say I want as many tools as I can have in my toolbox. That's just me. On Ben McAdoo, as I mentioned, third coach that's been hired from the outside with ties to Elliot Wolf. Again, he has the network, the experience. I landed on a C+. I said C in the last episode, but I've gotten a little more optimistic on Alex Van Pelt. I can't go any higher than a C- with Ben McAdoo. It's not because I don't like the cut of his jib. It's because this guy has been out of football for 3 years in the last 5 or 6. He's not held the job for longer than 1 year. A lot of that has been due to regime change, but he's also not coached a top 10 scoring offense anywhere in any capacity since 2015. Kind of an issue to me, Ma. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's why I think him and Van Pelt in particular, this is the major question mark. You know, Van Pelt, when the team was healthy last year, and again, he didn't call the offense, but like it was a top 10-ish offense, I think 11th DVOA offensively a year ago. Well, they were banged up this year, and they were not a good offense. The year where Van Pelt was able to call an offense in Buffalo, they were one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Now you bring back, like, Ben McAdoo's an NFL meme. Like, he's just, they had that picture of him on the sideline there in New York and showing up for games. He's just someone that fans laugh at. There's no positive, like, this guy's done X, Y, and Z recently in the NFL. It goes back to your point about Elliot Wolf. Like, these are his guys. He's going to sink or swim with, 53-year-old Van Pelt, 3 years out of football, McAdoo. Like, it doesn't feel like a super modern approach. And the whole thing for me was modernizing the coaching staff, modernizing the front office, and trying to catch up with the current state of the NFL, which is super offensively motivated. It's why I get the McVay guys are probably hired too quickly. But if I'm an owner, I do the exact same thing. What's working now in the NFL? Who's the godfather? Let's go bring these guys in. It used to be if you had Patriots cologne on you, as Chris Price would say from the Globe, you'd get hired. Well, now it's McVay. And they're doing it a little bit differently. And in a league where now, if you're not good offensively, you don't exist, in my opinion. This is a gamble, man. You are hoping that guys who have not been on high-level, high-octane offenses are now going to come in year one, Jerod Mayo, who does represent kind of a new school approach, right? Younger coach, gets along with play. Like, I get that part of it. But he's being surrounded with some older, second and third generation NFL pieces that are not part of that modern offense we're seeing every single Sunday across the league. So it is concerning that Wolf is hanging his hat on these guys who are not front and center in today's NFL offense.
That's an excellent way to put it. And I want to step back before I jump in, because Ben McAdoo, just like Alex Van Pelt, people going, okay, the Patriots hire an offensive coordinator. They empower him to make his own hires, which was a problem last year, as Doug Kyde and I reported, when Bill O'Brien comes in with his lunch pail and his tight ends coach, and that's it, and has to put all this chicken salad out there from Chicken Bleep. Now that Alex Van Pelt gets to hire guys, and he hires someone who's not only been a head coach, but an offensive coordinator and a quarterback's coach, this is a bad move. I hear you. If you want to be the optimist on this, I say do it. That's a lot better way to live. You will live longer. You will be happier. And then we'll see in September. I would just say again, though, Ben McAdoo coached Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers was already a made man in the mid-2000s. Yeah. It was 2 years as his position coach. Did good work as the Giants OC. Okay. Bombed as their head coach. And the thing that you nailed is not only that he's not at the forefront on the cutting edge of NFL offense today, his arrival indicates to me that Alex Van Pelt is going to double down on those old McCarthy offenses, which are the tried and true West Coast system. The same concepts. They're more static. There's not as much motion. Okay. And that offense works like it did for McAdoo when you're in New York and you've got OBJ in his prime, or McCarthy now with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. But it's a matchup based offense. We're going to do a couple things that have stressed defenses for decades. And because our guys are better than yours, it's going to work. Oh, but all of this, jet motion or other motions of Mike McDaniels drawing up Miami. No, we don't need that. And that to me is an issue, because the personnel in New England is not winning any one-on-ones anytime soon. I don't need the matchup-based offense. I need the offense that's going to give my guys and my young quarterback every single advantage possible, like we've seen in LA, like we've seen in San Francisco, and even Miami. And Ben McAdoo is as far away from that as we've seen the last 8-10 years.
It's a great point. And I want to forget the two teams in the Super Bowl. Those are pretty obvious. Go back to the championship weekend when you saw the Detroit Lions play. Like Jared Goff is able to be effective as a quarterback. We know he's not a great quarterback. He's, upper half in the NFL, but he's not in the top 5, not top 8, not top 10. But when you put Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, who looked better than any skill position player the Patriots had in the last maybe year or two with that explosive run that he had for a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, who I wanted the Patriots to take. These are like blue chip offensive elite talents, and they make the quarterback's life easier. Who is doing that here? You're not doing that in one offseason. Like you're not revamping. You're not getting enough guys to make it work in one offseason. So your point is well taken. Like, yes, I have bitched and moaned about the coordinator and the offense for a year, 2 years. Since Matt Patricia was calling plays, it's been an issue. But the bigger issue is that they need players now. Like Van Pelt might be the greatest coordinator in the history of football. He's not getting it done with these Patriot skill position guys wheeling it back. I mean, they had a guy here, Jonnu Smith, who can get on the field. He goes to Atlanta, Callahan, and he's one of the most electric tight ends in the NFC. He's playing over Kyle Pitts, and now I'm yelling on a podcast. So find some offensive talent, and then I get, not to say figure it out, but they need those players. They don't have them to make your scheme you're talking about work because they don't have those players. So it's a fun theory. We'll do what these other teams are doing. They lack so much talent on offense, it's not even funny.
And that's the overarching point, right? Which works two ways. One of which is to say, stop freaking out about Ben McAdoo. And I just explained why I don't like the hire. His title ultimately is senior offensive assistant, not quarterback's coach, not coordinator. There's only so much damage you can do when you're theoretically sitting in the corner of the room, okay? So he'll sit there, and that's fine. And no one should freak out about this, even though this is New England and I just decried the hire. That being said, if the coach is sitting in the corner of the room or he's out to lunch, it matters a whole lot less if you have players like you just mentioned. And the Lions took 3 years to rebuild, and they nailed their drafts. And the talent, it sounds so obvious and simple, but it's true, is the talent, whether you're in New England or Detroit or San Francisco or Kansas City, and that is what matters most. So as the staff comes together, and it's certainly underwhelming, there are a lot of floor raisers here. I think Alex Van Pelt is a floor raiser. He's going to get along with his guys. He's going to do his best as an ex-player to connect with them and draw up an offense that's sound. Is it sexy? No. But the Patriots are so far away from sexy. Man, you just need someone to invite you to the dance, okay? You don't need to do every single step to every single dance. You just got to get on the floor. They'll help them do this. How long they're here, I don't know. So, again, the talent is that bad that this is a wrong offense for them, I think. But it can't get much worse. And so I would just say I don't like the Ben McAdoo hire. I'm not going to freak out about it. We're going to stop yelling in this podcast, and we're going to go to grab bag unless you got something more.
Hold on. One more Van Pelt.
Yeah.
Is there any credence to the idea, one of the reasons he was hired, not just the Wolf tie over and the fact that he sold them in the 24 hours they met him and then hired him? He is 53. He's not likely to go get a head coaching job. I think it's a weird thing going on in the NFL right now where people they're going above and beyond to get these young offensive coordinators, which I totally get. But when you pair them with a defensive coach, what happens, you see it year in and year out in the NFL, that team does really well. And then, the Texans were great with C.J. Stroud. Now, Bobby Slowick didn't go anywhere, but he was considered like one of the one or two offensive coaching prospects to get head coaching. Ben Johnson, same thing in Detroit. Is the age and the stage of life for Van Pelt part of why he was hired with the idea that, even if we succeed offensively, he's less likely than younger offensive mind, Cliff Kingsbury, for example, to go and take a head coaching job because he's 53 versus 35?
I can't say for certain that factored into their thinking. I understand folks who would want to make their decisions based on that. And I would tell you it's completely wrong because you're at a place at a time where you just need the best coach possible. Okay. And even if they do take off, whether it was Jerod Johnson, if you lured him away from the Texans quarterbacks coach for CJ Stroud, make a pitch to him like the Texans did for Bobby Slowick. The Lions have now giving a raise to Ben Johnson. You just need to get better as a football team. That is a problem you can figure out in 2 years. But right now with Alex Van Pelt, you might not even get there. I would rather in 3 years have to replace him because he left on his own because they did such a good job as an offensive coordinator that he got to be a head coach rather than have to fire him after 4 because it hasn't been good enough. And again, I think they're going to get better as an offense. And this makes sense. But that short-term thinking, that safe line of thinking, obscures the larger point, which is you want to hire the best coach possible. If he's a flight risk, whatever, we'll replace him. We need to get off the ground because in that same amount of time, we will become more attractive in a way the Patriots' job unequivocally was not to the top candidates, and that hurt your search. But you get in, let's say it was Zach Robinson or Nick Keeley or whomever, to make this offense run and fly, and New England suddenly a spot again for players and coaches and whatever. Make that happen first, then figure it out because it'll make the next search easier. I don't care that he's not a flight risk. This is get the best coach in here possible, and I don't think you can go wrong with that thinking.
Okay, I'm not sure they got the best coach, but I get what you're saying.
And look, you're that late in the search. I understand the panic button. Maybe he was the best option available. If Kelly said no, and it bugs me to no end that I can't figure out why he and the Patriots got to the goal line. No one will get back to me on whether Kelly took a knee himself or the Patriots pulled him and gave the ball to Alex Van Pelt to score. But that's where things got, and things changed. Okay. And if Kelly took a knee, then he's the 6th candidate out of 12 to tell the Patriots no before they could get back to any of those candidates. And that says everything you need to know.
That's as bad as the Red Sox GM search.
Okie doke. Let's not go there. But you might not be wrong. Grab bag. I told you I'm going to give you some topics, and we just did McAdoo, so he's off the board. Steve Belichick leaving for the University of Washington with Vinny Sunseri. Steve is going to be the defensive coordinator out there for Jetfish. Jakobi Meyers telling Felger and Maz yesterday, Monday, Patriots were $1 million short of the deal he took in Vegas. Now we don't know, and this is very important, whether it was $1 million guaranteed, whether it was $1 million per year. He got 3 years, $33 million. So were they offering 3 for 30, which is really $3 million total over the contract?
Sure.
Or $1 million less in total value. So $1 million per year, $1 million in guarantees, or $1 million in average annual value. Or you can pick your own topic, dealer's choice. What are we doing next?
I thought of the list. I didn't know I had dealer's choice. Didn't know that was available to me. But the Myers thing, people that did not see it Monday should go and watch the interview with Jakobi Meyers on Felger and Maz from Radio Row. And by the way, going to the Super Bowl if you're a radio station is a very smart idea. We were there. I was doing the midday shows with Lou Merloni. The Patriots weren't in it. They sent us to New York to the Super Bowl. We got there thinking, what the hell are we going to talk about? Well, Marshall Faulk came on Wednesday. Rick, the Patriots are being cheaters, live on the air with us. Came a 2-day story in Boston. So you can make news as a radio show. And Felger and Maz did that yesterday. To get Jakobi Meyers, not only to say the Patriots are $1 million short, but how basically like it was a grind to play there. He was just going there to sort of go along to get along. Some of the phrasing he used, watching that again this morning.
He felt freed.
Felt freed, doing what it had to do to get by. Like basically the way he was talking about the Patriots sounded like he would talk about like a girlfriend or ex-boyfriend or girlfriend who scarred you. Like the look on his face. Then they bring up the Raiders and the big smile pops on there and how great it is and how free it is. And he had an awesome year with the Raiders. So forgetting the fact of like the money's important too, because it showed you they had a hard line and didn't recognize, even if it's $3 million, Callahan, like for that player who meant what he meant to this offense and to the quarterback at that time, Mac Jones, they should have found that $3 million, a really stubborn move by whether it was Groh, Wolf, Belichick, Kraft, whomever, really short-sighted by the team. Bigger picture, like just the way that he looked, his face, sort of went along with what we heard late in the year, Trent Brown talking about the time here this year. Players on the way out applauding, and I'm forgetting his name now, bad job by me. Yes, the quarterback who left to go to Baltimore. Like, thank God you're out of here. They'll use you better in Baltimore, basically alluding to that on social media. Like, they paint it like it was a really tough place to play offensively. And watching it at home, I felt good because you know what? It was a pain in the ass to watch. So I'm glad the players felt some of the pain that we did as fans. And watch the expressions on his face, talking to Felger and Maz and Jim Murray. He looked happy to be out of here. He couldn't say nice things about Las Vegas and that offense.
Now, Jakobi Meyers left after the disastrous Patricia Judge offense 2022. When he missed 3 games, still finished as their leading receiver. And I will remind folks, he was their leading receiver in 2020, in 2021, and 2022. And they said, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want to revisit the whole conversation, but it was interesting to me, Mutt, that he said they were only $1 million short. Again, whether that's total, per year, guarantees, whatever,
Doesn't matter.
When I reported in October, speaking with multiple ex-teammates of his, and then someone else in the league who was close to the negotiations, who had said, one, when push came to shove at the end, he was telling teammates, they don't want me. I'm not really hearing from them. This is it. And so the other part was I had understood they were maybe not even the runner-up. Now, the money might be close. But what that tells me is that the experience that he just highlighted, that he opened up about to you, and whether that's right or wrong, there used to be a payoff. It's going to be a pain in the ass. You're going to go to the playoffs. You're going to win Super Bowls. Obviously, the payoff has not been there the last 4 years. Is that he probably wanted more money than what he got from Vegas if he was going to stay in New England. And I think that's a totally fair ask. Not because I like Jakobi, but it's because of taxes here in Massachusetts, the role he would have played in that offense. He knew going to Vegas he was the number 2, okay? He would have, again, probably been their leading receiver had he stayed here. If you're number 1, you deserve to get paid like one. And that also says to me that there are probably other players who feel the same way. And that's the issue the Patriots are playing now. I said last week in this podcast, there's a tax they have to pay to get people to come to Foxborough now. The shine is gone, okay, for coaches. They need to pay more. It goes the same for players, and Jakobi Meyers just told us that.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add is that it's sort of it paints the picture again of them not recognizing how important offensive talent is. Again, misusing Jonnu Smith, letting Jakobi Meyers walk for even if it was $3 million. You find a way to keep that guy. I hope that Elliot Wolf and whoever is making the calls going forward recognize the league is now different. And if you have an offensive player you want to keep, you better tell him. Like, it sounds to me, watching the interview sounded like they were playing hardball. Like, they were playing hard to get. They weren't in that position. They were a bad offense with little offensive talent for quarterbacks to throw the football to. So hopefully the new regime recognizes it's a different game and is not going to play these type of, hard to get games with elite offensive talent, of which Meyers like a borderline elite offensive receiver, very good slot receiver, fit in very well with Vegas, not the best receiver in the NFL, but there's got to be a change in approach there. And hopefully this is a sign that the new regime is going to do something different.
Yeah, an ideal number 2. And he had 71 catches, 809 yards, 8 touchdowns. Perfect. Like, you need someone better than Jakobi Meyers, don't get me wrong. But in New England, obviously, that player doesn't exist and hasn't for 3 years. Actually, 4 going on, including this year. But again, we'll move on. I'm glad you said multiple times, watch the interview for yourself. It's as much about him not committing when asked if the Patriots had offered you the same, would you have come here? And he did not say yes. And he even said, I probably would have thought about it differently. As much as just his mannerisms and body language, and you interpret it however you want. We've made our feelings clear. We're moving on. But you mentioned, going to the Super Bowl, Radio Row, about 10 years ago. And you would make every effort, which I know only one station did here locally in Boston. What I'm more curious about is not so much the travel budget. If I put you in charge of a station or a show or a podcast, of what the hell to do the next 2.5 months, we are going to have a lot of time to talk about free agency and the draft. And I am very excited right up front to deliver a lot of draft-related content on this podcast and watch film and make calls, talk to different executives and coaches, and just get a feel for this class, wrap my head around it, my arms around it, and know what I think they should do when it comes to the draft. But the draft is still 2.5 months away. And I feel like, including shows I've been on and watched, I can only hear so many more times, should the Patriots take a quarterback at 3? Or should they take a tackle? Is it okay to take Marvin Harrison Jr.? What's the best way? And I'm going, have any of you watched any of the tape? Because I haven't. And yeah, I'm certainly behind folks like Taylor Kyles and Alex Barth, and these guys do a tremendous job with a lot of the tape. But how are you handling this down period? Because I just feel like there's a better way to do it than collectively, all of us, self-included, have so far. Because we haven't been in this spot for like 30 years with the Patriots having a top 5 pick and no quarterback. So
the way I approached it was, what would the topic have to be in Callahan's podcast or Curran's podcast, Pick Your Patriots podcast, yours, of course, first and foremost, where I'm like, I want to listen to that right now. Like, I'm not going to skip over it. The draft stuff, I'm with you. I'm interested in it. But if I'm eye-rolling it in February, then a lot of people are. So I wrote down 3 topics or ideas that I, as a consumer, would be interested in. And I'd be curious what your audience, I would put this out to your audience too, and have them respond to you and see what they would do. First and foremost, I know you're sick of doing it. I want the full deep dive on Alex Van Pelt. Like, if you had a podcast where it's you and somebody who played for him, or you and somebody who worked for him, his whole track record, what happened in Cleveland, why couldn't he call plays, him and Stefanski, Like I heard it spun, and I forget where the last couple of days that maybe the front office decided that Van Pelt was the guy that should have been out, and the coaching staff wanted to keep him. Like, I would like a deep dive on Alex Van Pelt, knowing that the league is so offensively focused right now. I don't even know what his style is. He's coached for so many different programs. I don't really know what you're going to see as a fan. So first and foremost, you might be sick of this too, but Alex Van Pelt. Number 2 is the current state of the front office and how they are going to go about it. You know, guys who have worked in front offices that have done an overhaul. You know, how you go from a big presence like Bill Belichick to now guys that fans are wondering, can they get it done? Almost the way we started out this podcast here today. So the current state of the front office, the power structure there, who's making decisions. I'm fascinated now, post-Belichick, how it's going to work. And then third, and this goes back to the fan base for a second, like this is a rebuild now. Like, this is the Belichick's out, Brady's out. Like, that is now officially, you can't hang your hat on. Maybe Bill can do it one more time with it. Nope, you got to put that thing away. How have teams that have been at that mountaintop, 49ers had a couple of big runs, Dallas Cowboys, like, how have those teams then turned it around? Is it as simple as you got to get the quarterback? Had there teams that have done it where they've not done quarterback first? Like, the sort of the rebuild aspect of this franchise. And again, you're never going to be as good as they were. It's a once-in-a-lifetime type thing, the 20 years they went on. But how do they get back to being in the conversation where their Monday night games against Mahomes aren't flexed out? Like, that is as bad as it gets for a franchise. How do they get back to they get flexed in to a game like that? We're talking about the team on the field and the current people here, instead of reminiscing with Stephen A. and McAfee, all these talking heads about the old days of the Patriots. How do they make like that next part? So to me, those are 3 things that I, as a consumer, would be very interested in addition to the normal stuff, draft, free agency, sort of different issues to look at in the offseason. Of course, I'm not on the radio, so I might be the best guy to ask right now, but those are my 3 things that I'm looking at as a consumer of podcasts here in New England.
Well, I appreciate that. And not because I'm outsourcing my plans for the next week. I want to say that clearly. But you're someone who, you know, when I'm texting you, I'm deliberating, okay, what are the topics we want to hit? You know, it comes to mind very often because I don't know if you would live around the corner from Chad Finn now, or you're down the street, or you're just in the same school district. But the way you've been writing about sports media in Boston is a way that obviously not just speaks from your experience, but as someone who's reasonable, has plenty of contacts in the business. And so on the Mutstack, which again, go subscribe, mutstack.com, like, I'm interested in that. I don't know how much I have to say yet, but like this particular angle of like, how can we do this better? And I have my ideas, but I thought you'd be a great person to ask because again, there's like, we can't ask yes or no questions 2.5 months out over and over again. And I've committed very loosely, like, yeah, I would take Jaden Daniels and sign Jakobi Brissett, and that sounds good. Based very unlimited tape watching of Jaden Daniels, which doesn't feel good. When I come to you with stuff, I want it to be concrete, whether it's reporting or some opinions or whatever it might be. And I'm just not there yet. But I know I can't say that much longer. And I'm taking a break here soon. When I come back, we are going headlong into film. But I think that's a reasonable, well-rounded perspective on how we should be doing things for the next couple of months.
Yeah, I don't like it's a different show that we could do, but the podcast genre has gotten super competitive, and there is a lot out there. And so for me as a consumer, Van Pelt, the front office, rebuild like franchise rebuild. So this is what it is about to be. If you're like, the Celtics are not dealing with that. The Celtics are every night must watch, one of the best products in the NBA. The Patriots are the exact opposite right now. How do they get back to it? That whole rebuild part of it, I would be interested in hearing about how other franchises have done it, but also the way it plays out for the Patriots now. You're almost not tuning in to see them win. You're seeing, okay, how are they going to get back to that or close to that? No, not where they were, but on that front page of NFL stories again.
Well, you're in luck. I will have an Alex Van Pelt deep dive coming up the next couple of weeks. Next week, only one episode on here. I'm going to Spain with my wife for 6 days, going to get away.
Nice.
And then taking the aforementioned headlong dive into the film and everything combine and free agency, yada, yada. But we will get to know Alex Van Pelt very well on this podcast and in the Boston Herald. All right, that's what you want to hear. What I want to hear now are prop bets. We've been teasing the people long enough. I gave you 3 categories. Fill these categories with as many bets as you want, but they were as follows. Quote, I can't believe this. Run to your book now and lock it in. The solid Costco value bet. So a little bit less than that, but like good, solid, rock. I like this bet. And then long shots, I love. Where do you want to start?
All right, my general overview, we're talking about this on Tuesday, and I've started writing a little bit of this for Friday's Mutt Stack right now. Two things can both be true. This is a great Super Bowl. You have Mahomes against the 49ers, a rematch a couple years ago, an actual quarterback now, who I don't think is going to make the mistakes Jimmy Garoppolo made, like that interception before halftime, one of the worst throws in the history of the Super Bowl that he made against the Chiefs. Like, this is an awesome game. Not just because Taylor Swift's going to be in attendance. They're going to set viewership records. It's going to be a super buzzworthy Super Bowl in Las Vegas. I'm all for it. That can be true, but I can also say this. It's not a great game for me to get on a soapbox and say, here's an awesome bet to make on the side or total of this game. This is a coin flip game. It's a 2.5 point spread right now on FanDuel. It's either going to be, if you want to sit here and tell me you want Mahomes, the greatest quarterback of this current crop, getting 2.5 points, totally understand that. If you want to say you want the 49ers, basically almost at a pick 'em, who are the first or second DVOA the entire year, the best or second best or 1A all year in the NFL, in one of the most important rankings in the NFL, you want to bet them at almost a pick 'em, I totally get it. So I don't want to cop out, but I'm telling you from a side standpoint, this is not a Super Bowl I'm rushing to like hammer 49ers or Chiefs from the side. My idea in the Super Bowl has been for a couple of weeks, and I've lost some money doing this, Callahan. I'll be honest with your audience.
Terrible way to start.
2 weeks ago, I thought for sure Buffalo would run all over Baltimore. They ran for 182 yards and still lost the game. So I doubled down on that idea and said, well, of course, Baltimore, one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL, they're going to run the ball all over Kansas City.
Are you talking about Houston? Just to
that?
Stop Buffalo and Baltimore?
My fault. It was Buffalo against Kansas City. They ran for $1.82 against KC, still found a way to lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
Then the following week, I said, well, I bet against Mahomes once. I can't now jump on this bandwagon. Of course, Baltimore with Gus Edwards and all sorts of running backs and the best running quarterback in the NFL, they're going to run on Buffalo. They're going to run on the defense of Kansas City. Kansas City's defense, 27th this year DVOA against the run, 28th in EPA per play per rush attempt. You can run on KC. They're a good defense. You can run on them. So, of course, Baltimore's going to run, right? 6 rushes. Gus Edwards has 3. Zay Flowers has 2. I am still scarred by Todd Monken's approach, the offensive coordinator in Baltimore. So I have done this. I have played this game. I played with fire against Mahomes for 2 weeks, and I'm doing it again because San Fran is too smart, and they are too skilled running the football. They have offensive line talent, and they have McCaffrey. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have Deebo Samuel. They have a power running game. Motion. You can do all sorts of things with all sorts of players in that offense. So my whole theory in this game is that unlike last week or 2 weeks ago, this opponent is going to run the football. And the question is, can Mahomes do enough late to overcome that? So my props and ideas are based specifically on the running game. I will tell you, as you look at it here, let me pull your email up. The I can't believe this run to your book and lock it in now for me.
Yes.
Would be a couple of things. Number one is the right now on FanDuel, the total rush receiving yard prop for Christian McCaffrey is 130.5 yards. I want the over. The thesis here is that Kyle Shanahan is just too smart not to absolutely pepper McCaffrey with carries and catches. And the Kansas City, as good as they are, they get Willie Gay back in this game. Good middle of the field defender for them. Kansas City's not going to be able to keep up with McCaffrey, and Shanahan is going to feed him. So if I had to say, like, if there's one bet right now I really like, it's McCaffrey over 130.5 total yards. That's rushing and receiving combined. In his playoff game career, he averages about 20 touches per game and over 111 yards. So in the playoffs, he has had some big games. And I think in the Super Bowl, he could have his biggest offensive game potentially of the year. So the I can't believe this run to your book and lock in and now Callahan bet on FanDuel over 130.5 yards combined for Christian McCaffrey rushing and receiving. One more bet on that same line involves running in Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel is a guy that they love giving the ball to there in San Francisco. He had a bum shoulder in the NFC title game. He still got 3 carries. His rushing total right now on FanDuel is 15.5 yards. I want the over at -110. I think, again, the idea will be let's run the football right down their throats in Kansas City. They can't stop it. Couldn't stop it all year. Limit the time for Mahomes to have the football. And we can't give it to McCaffrey every time. We can't give it to Eli Mitchell every time. Let's get Debo some carries. And even in a game when he was hurt, he almost broke this number. He gets a chance to do it. He went over his number 8 times during the regular season. He's healthy. Couple of weeks. Debo Samuel over 15.5 rushing yards. That's the first level, okay? In that solid Costco value baby, which is what you wrote. I didn't write baby. You wrote baby. So
I missed the comma. This is not a Costco value baby. This is just solid Costco value baby.
Okay. Patrick Mahomes rushing yardage number in this game, 25.5 yards. I want the over. There have been studies done on quarterbacks in big games. Mahomes specifically, he runs more. Case in point, 3 Super Bowls prior for Mahomes. 6 carries, 44 yards. 5 carries, 33 yards. 9 carries, 29 yards. He has gone over this rushing number, 25.5 yards, in all 3 Super Bowls that he's played in. Okay? San Fran allowed the 11th most quarterback rushing yards against in the entire NFL. Mahomes is going to be running for his life. I like the over 25.5 rushing yards. That is minus 110 currently on FanDuel.
Well, let's stay there for a second, too, because it happened in other playoff games, not just the Super Bowls. But you think about those Super Bowls, his weaponry was much, much, much better than it is now. So he had other options and still chose to scramble. And his scrambles, I would argue, the most devastating in the league, especially on plays where you feel like you should get a coverage sack. And he's like, nah, I'm just going to dart out over here. Like that number and Mahomes scrambles in general in big games, I just think he takes it up to another level where you see Josh Allen get a little too risky in those areas. Mahomes does it, and it's so pointed and it's so timely and it's so good. I love that number. I'm glad you brought it up.
It's 2 or 3 big carries for him. And if you believe that they're in chase mode, I think they will be, 3rd and long situations, that's when you see him sort of tuck the ball and run. And so that, to me, I put in that solid Costco value. Like if someone just wanted like a safe bet for the Super Bowl they were interested in, forget the side or total. I think that player prop makes some sense. The one long shot I keep coming back to is 60-1 for a reason. And that is Brandon Ayuk to win the MVP Sunday in Vegas. And I get it. L'Jarius Sneed, like this whole buzz about lockdown corner, make all the plays, blah, blah, blah. This will take only two long touchdowns in a lower scoring game where there's 3 touchdowns total, and Ayuk has over 100 yards receiving and 2 of the touchdowns. He can win the MVP. He is 60-1. And he's 60-1 because he's unlikely to win it. But I can paint a scenario where Kansas City gets so focused on the run game of the 49ers, they're able to take up a play action shots deep and get one-on-one with no safety help on Ayuk because they're worried about George Kittle. They're worried about Debo Samuel. They're committing safeties to the box. Like I am not football X's and O's guy. I'll save that for the X players. But there are scenarios where Brandon Ayuk, an electric receiver, gets some one-on-one matchups with a defensive back in Sneed who's willing to take some chances, and he gets beat a couple times for 2 long touchdowns. At 60-1, he is my favorite long shot bet, just like a straight-up bet right now on FanDuel to win the MVP. But as far as long shots go, you can build long shots ticket yourself. Like what I suggest people do, and you're a FanDuel podcast, you can do this on any book you want to do it. Go to these books and you create these correlated same-game parlays, Callahan. Like if you think the 49ers are going to win big and they're going to run the football, well, you can build, Brock Purdy under his passing total, McCaffrey over his rushing total, McCaffrey for 2 or more touchdowns, like defense to get, like you can build out parlays in the way you want to see the game play out and create bets that are 6, 7, 8, 10, 20-1 on 4, 5, 6, 7 things that could happen if your opinion is right. And by the way, you can get that at a very small amount. Like I was building a same game parlay today that would return $100 on a $5 bet that had 3 or 4 or 5 things that make sense for the way that I see the game is playing out. And all these books are doing it now. FanDuel especially. FanDuel, I think, in fact, to give them a shout out, is doing a free $5 same game parlay for folks in the Super Bowl. So you can build your own ridiculous same game parlay, make it crazy odds, and make it work for you. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think it's Mahomes to have 300 passing yards. Well, you can do all passing yards and make it, well, if he has 300 passing yards, who's going to get the touchdowns? Who are the receivers involved? Like there are ways to build out bets that aren't there that fit how you see the game playing out. in these same game parlays. I don't advise playing them all the time. They're not going to win long term, but for a game like Sunday, tell yourself a story, build out a bet, and have some fun. Like, to me, that's the way that I'm looking at this game. I don't think I'm going to hammer one side or the other. I'll have some these player props, some same game parlays, and probably end up rooting against Mahomes because I cannot take 3 months of his Mahomes better than Brady right now. I can't take that.
I'm with you on that. And you know what I can't believe is that we've already had 2 weeks of that when he still has not won a third Super Bowl. Like, I'm watching all those ridiculous GD shows, and I get part of it's entertainment. Like, sports media has never been more pro wrestling than it is now. And that's also just a nod to Pat McAfee being in the midday slot on ESPN, a pro wrestler in some senses. But It's more to the point of, like, they're having those conversations, and I'm thinking, hey, if he wins, are you just like, where do you go next? Because 3 is still less than half of 7, which last time I checked is how many Tom Brady had. But anyway, you can't think rationally about those conversations. What you can't think rationally, though, I just want to underscore, because I understand there can be a lot of risk in here, and folks who are uncomfortable with the betting that we've talked about, and it's a major sponsor of the podcast. What I would do is take the free offer that Mutt just mentioned, free $5 bet. It can go up to $200 depending if you're a new customer or not. And then just delete the app during the game. Like, make the bet that morning or in the afternoon. If you're uncomfortable with it, or you just want to put 5 or 10 in, do what he advised, because it's such simple, solid advice of, if you think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a great game, pick the over on his passing yards, over on Travis Kelce catches, put it in, and boom. The odds are plus 300 or plus 400, meaning you're going to win 3 or 4 times the amount that you put in. And if that's $5 or $10, you're talking about $20, $30, $40, $50 potentially. And so, very simple. I'll give a couple for me, because I love the scrambling one. You mentioned like MVP. That's another easy, simple, set it and forget it type of approach. Small, safe, easy, or just ignore all this. But Deebo Samuel at plus 3,300 for MVP has my eye. And I get the concerns about L'Jarius Sneed, who also, by the way, sneak peek, is going to be on my wish list for the Patriots and for agency. I think they're going to target, meaning the 49ers, the Chiefs linebackers in a way with their running game that's not always just straight ahead. Because you look at the prototype for their linebackers, last few drafts, Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, Leo Chanel. Like, these are dudes who could have played for the early 2000s Patriots defenses, not because they're as good as Teddy Bruschi or Roman Pfeiffer or Mike Vrabel. They're just big, hulking MFers, okay? So getting them going side to side is best done with plays that feature a Deebo Samuel. And especially against a high-pressure defense, which is what the Chiefs run, screens to Deebo Samuel. So his combination of, I think, rushing yards and receiving yards, and probably this will necessitate a couple of touchdowns. If Brock Purdy throws a pick, I like him, even though that number is not great. But when you go from the quarterbacks and McCaffrey, big jump to Travis Kelce at plus 1,700. Then there's Deebo Samuel at plus 3,300. That's my favorite MVP bet, in addition to co-signing on Mutt's Mahomes over rushing yards.
Yeah, normally it's sort of easy, right? If you think the team's going to win, just you bet their quarterback to win the MVP rather than bet them to win. It worked with Mahomes last year. I'm with you. I think there's a scenario where, the Niners win and it's McCaffrey or somebody else. Mm-hmm. Like I think I wrote last week, I already have a McCaffrey bet in at almost 5-1. That number's come down a little bit because I could see them featuring him quite a bit in this game. I will give you a name that I'm sure nobody's going to talk about, and he might. I think he's going to play. And there's not even a prop bet up on FanDuel for him. But if you listen to this later in the week, or you're listening and you're make a little note, like, if Jerick McKinnon plays, Jerick McKinnon is a running back for the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. He's their receiving back. He was their go-to third down back before he got hurt. They've now given that to Isaiah Pacheco, who has been, quite frankly, awesome. Like, he has been a revelation to watch him run, catch the ball in the backfield. Excellent player. But if McKinnon plays, he's going to get some time in third down and passing downs. If they post his receiving prop, I don't think they'll post it at half. But if they posted it, maybe they will post it at half. At 1.5 receptions for Jerick McKinnon, if he's active and expected to play a role in this game, I'm going to be betting the over. I'm telling you a prop bet that doesn't exist right now that I'd be interested in end of the week. And by the way, all these prop bets have been up for a week. They're very efficient. They've been bet on by very smart people now for almost 7, 8, 9 days. So know that when you're betting into this market, that it's a very efficient market right now, even these prop markets. Jerick McKinnon is a guy that I will keep an eye on and have an over on his receptions at 1.5 if he is expected to play Sunday and will play. They might not even put those bets up there. It could be so late in the game, but put that aside for Sunday. And if it hits, I'll remind you of it for the next 12 months.
You'll remind me in a year when I say, oh, I wasn't keeping score, and you jump in immediately down my throat being like, oh, no, I picked the MVP. I did it. Because you're right. And that's why you're here to talk some of this stuff, which to that point about that bet, and this is a novice observation and thing to care about. But what I like about those are he could very well have those 2 receptions in the first half. And then you're having an extra cocktail at halftime because your little bet of $5 to $10, which again is how I approach it. I think UConn's going to win big tonight against Butler. $10. That's it. Like there's minimal risk in that. That's how I approach it. I delete the app. Other people who spend more time in this, pour more money, that's great. But Jerod McKinnon, 1.5 catches. You just see a check down, boom, boom. You're celebrating in the second quarter like the Chiefs have already won the Super Bowl. When in reality, you just had free gas money deposited into your account. Not free, obviously, but you get the point. Like that, the small stuff that has the immediate possible payoff in small amounts.
Free money did you say free money from FanDuel?
Yeah. Bonus bets must be withdrawn in 7 days, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's just how I approach it, how I continue to approach it, something that I was completely reluctant to deal with and throw out the NFL stuff for you to use, not for me. But, basketball or the Celtics or UConn or the Red Sox, especially when, God, it hits like July now and things are already sad. Like, that's how I spice up my.
Oh, it's going to be sad. Sad Callahan will be at those games this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be sad. It's not going to be pretty.
You're right. Probably with the FanDuel app open. And then deleted immediately after the 4th inning. And then no one knows where that's going to go. No one wants to go there. But this would be great. What did we not hit on? Anything?
I think we hit on it all. I guess the only other question I have for you, Patriots related, since you mentioned it, do we know who's making the draft pick? Who's going to have the biggest say in what they do at number 3?
We do not. And I think you might hear that word collaboration longer than you might like. But again, I keep bringing up the name Elliot Wolf because I think it's the right name to have. That said, like even if Matt Gross stays and he's not the de facto GM, he's the head of the college scouting department. So I would be shocked if there was clear division about how to handle that pick. And maybe there will be, but the Patriots have already scouted all of the players that are in their system and have film grades done on them. Like there's not as much work left to be done in league circles. And splitting hairs is very important in the draft. Don't get me wrong. But like most of the hay is in the barn. And so I think there might not be consensus, but everyone is within the same ballpark of how they feel about these players. I think a couple scouts may be excluded. So I say that to say Wolf or Grow, like this should be a Patriots pick by and large, because the guy who used to go off the board is no longer here, which is like the footnote of Bill Belichick's Wikipedia.
Do you think they will select, again, this is months out.
Yeah.
Does your gut tell you they're a take the best guy at 3? Because that's what Mayo's alluded to. We want the best player we can at that spot. Or is this a trade down for more value year?
I think if they don't take a quarterback, you will see them trade down. Will they take a quarterback? I don't know. And I don't think they know. And that's the best I can say.
Well, if Marvin Harrison is there and they trade down, I'm going to
see. Now we're doing the thing I didn't want to do, and I asked you not to get
we
on this.
We got months.
You had great ideas, and that was way more than I expected. And it was just kind of an offhand, like sports media curiosity that I had, sincerely. And you absolutely delivered. Anything to tease on the Mutstack this week?
Super Bowl betting, and we'll probably write a little bit. You mentioned sort of your approach to sports betting. There's this national dialogue now starting about sports betting in general, which we'll probably touch on as well. We'll probably call the Patriots offseason underwhelming. I'm sure the Red Sox do something stupid between now and Friday. So we'll be very, very busy with our full card of Super Bowl picks, in addition to what I talked about here, both on mutstack.com, free to subscribe on Friday with our column, and then on Twitter. You can follow me there as well for some really bad tweets. I don't claim to be good at Twitter. I'm on there. But if you want really bad tweets, you can follow me anytime. Also free.
Do you think the Red Sox truck blew a tire already on the way to Florida?
It was really sad to watch Sam Kennedy field questions from 4 people like that. There was a time where that was a big deal.
Yes.
And I was shocked. I actually was Monday. It was Monday morning, right at 8:30 on Monday. Both sports radio stations in Boston at the same time were both doing live call-ins from Truck Day. You had Dan Roach there for 98.5, and you had one of the producers there for EEI. And I thought, well, that's interesting that people still care. And then nobody care. Why are they doing this? You can do it to mock it, but fans, this team is irrelevant to a large portion of fans right now. There are diehards that still get very upset. My friend Jerod Mayo gets very upset because the team's not very good. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they've just sort of the team has floated away, Callahan. So if the truck broke down, I don't think anyone would care right now. They have made their product so easy to ignore, it is not even funny. And they, like the Red Sox, right, the Patriots to an extent, they're trying to find their way now. What is their next thing going to be? They keep doing this thing where it's our owners are championship committed. Well, it's been a while now where you've not been committed to. You can't keep saying that. For the Patriots, Belichick and Brady are gone. So what's the next thing going to be? Two teams in town are dealing with that right now, both the Patriots and the Red Sox. What is our next version of championship success going to look like? And in this case, if the truck did break down, I'm not sure fans would care.
That's so sad. I don't want to spend much more time on that. But hey,
I feel bad for you. Remember Callahan telling us stories. We had an event. I forget. We had an event at Lord Hobo. And you were sitting there telling us about your days of living near Fenway and going over as a fan and getting tickets and sitting there and scoring the game like an old man. No, can't do that anymore. The team stinks.
Some can and some will. Not as many times, but you'll find me at Fenway. Last thing on that, because you brought up the parallel of the Red Sox and the Patriots, and I think people will point and go, cheap, stop spending money. The Patriots, whether it's this offseason or next, by CBA rules, hard league, collectively bargained rules, will need to spend to meet the cash floor over the next 3 years, a certain amount, 90% of the cap. They will need to spend a lot of money to get there. I'm not guaranteeing it happens in March, but it will need to happen. So I'm not saying that they can't spend more money. They should have already in the past, but that is coming in a way that I think you will see all the conversation around them being cheap. As far as the Patriots go, step back a little bit when you start to see some numbers roll in, either in 1 month or in 13.
I hope the Crafts recognize they need to spend some money. There needs to be some good, Theo Epstein's back with the Red Sox, part and parcel. It's it's a PR move. The Patriots need to spend some money, I think, in some ways as a PR move to remind the fans we are still committed to winning. To that extent, is there an Adalis Thomas first day free agent move happening? Do you think they will, again, I won't hold you to this, but first night of free agency at midnight, are the Patriots one of those teams who signs a big ticket item on the first day to set the tone?
I think that big ticket item, if I had to guess here, February 6th, will be a player they already have with a big contract, but not a big name, which, mind you, 4 out of the top 50 on ESPN's best free agents list were Patriots. I think one of them sticks around.
Okay. I will want to hold you to that, but I'll put it away. I'll put it in the folder here.
All right. He's Mike Mutnansky. You can find him at mutstack.com or some bad tweets on X. You're the best, man. Go Huskies, and can't wait to have you back.
Anytime, buddy. Talk to you soon.